Yeah, thanks everyone for joining. We'll start off with a little bit of housekeeping. So for those of you that couldn't make it to the webinar, don't worry, it's being recorded and we're going to send that recording out to everyone that registered. So you'll be able to watch that after the fact. Today's an exciting one, really. It's a little bit different. I'm joined here with Sonia and Brandy from Next Level Now, and a shared partner of ours, Adam Whittke from BlueNet Inc., where we're going to be talking about the journey of tough decisions towards a brighter future. Have a look at some of the important work that Next Level Now are doing, and a little bit of Halo as well. So, yeah, thanks everyone for joining.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you so
you.
much, Morgan.
Yeah.
So I'd love to start here. We'll go left to right. Brandy, would you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Next Level?
Yeah, so I'm Brandy Bonds of Next Level Now. I've been in the MSP IT industry for about 16 years and have really been on this wild journey with the industry. Love helping entrepreneurs and make tough decisions, hence the title of this, making some tough decisions to poise themselves for growth or transition. And just a little bit about Next Level. We provide CFO support services with accounting teams to help MSP IT businesses be able to navigate through some of the difficult challenges that present in the landscape of the IT world.
Awesome. Thank you, Brandy. And Morgan, I think a lot of us know about Halo, but could you tell us a little bit about the product and how it's different?
Yeah, for sure. Quick introduction to myself for those of you that don't know who I am. So I'm Morgan. I've been at Halo for about 4.5 years now. Like most of us here at Halo, I started off on the support desk and moved into the onboarding team, where I worked with hundreds of MSPs implementing HaloPSA, understanding the pain points, the requirements for the system, and understanding how MSPs use a PSA platform on a day-to-day basis. Now product manager, so I help drive the roadmap forward. I help where help is needed. So you might see me on support answering tickets. You might see me doing demos. You might see me in webinars. And yeah, a little bit about HaloPSA. So for those of you that don't know, Halo's been around for quite a while now. Formerly a company called Net Help Desk, running a Windows-based help desk application. And then 5 years ago, completely built the app from the ground up. Built in an API-first manner, using REST API and React on the front end. And so when we take a quick look at Halo later on today, you'll see that it's a sleek and modern and responsive UI, but we've got that 25 years worth of heritage from the Windows application. So a really powerful engine under the hood. A lot of decisions that we made right, a lot of decisions that we made wrong and had the opportunity to correct 5 years ago when moving from Net Help Desk to Halo. And yeah, HaloPSA is a fully fledged PSA platform. And we'll take a little look at that later today.
Great. Awesome. Thank you so much, Morgan. And of course, last but certainly not least, Adam, who again is really a joint client of Next Levels and Halo. And we're so excited for Adam to really walk us through BlueNet's transformational story today. Adam, tell us a little bit about yourself and your company before we dive into the details of your timeline.
Yeah, thank you, Sonia. So my name is Adam Whittke. I am the owner and founder of BlueNet. I founded BlueNet in 2007, and we'll kind of go over that a little bit a little bit later in the webinar. But founded BlueNet in 2007. I've owned a couple of IT companies, been in IT in either a VAR capacity or managed service capacity for over 33 years. So this is kind of my lifeblood. BlueNet's grown through some, acquisitions. So I've done some acquisition as well in the past. Done everything from, radio, when we did some original radio stuff back about 5-6 years ago, to, as Morgan says, you can sometimes have to get your hands dirty and just keep the business going. So I even do support tickets when necessary as well. We're a company of about 18 employees today. And we are going through our growth story. So we're going to talk about that obviously today. So
yeah, fantastic. All right. So to continue, Adam, you already told us that BlueNet, you founded it in 2007 with a plethora of experience in the industry. And really just to kind of circle back to the beginning here for all of our attendees, this is a great moment for Adam to walk us through, again, that growth story. And please put questions in the chat, and we'll, Morgan and I will speak up and ask some questions, and then we'll go through a little more detail here. But really, it's a time to share stories about how someone's massive experience in the industry has made a business very successful and scalable. So Adam, please, if you would walk us through kind of what happened after the founding.
Yeah. So just quickly, I was in another co-owned, had a small ownership stake, about a third, of another company that was, I'll call it a VAR, a value-added reseller. We did some sort of kind of the old, I'll call it block time agreements, and those are still around, but that was primarily our driving factor, was selling hardware, project work installation, and block time agreements. And I got my first taste of kind of the MRR, the monthly recurring revenue, because I sold a managed network deal. Unfortunately, my previous partner and I didn't see eye to eye on recurring revenue. And that's when I decided to break away and founded BlueNet. And the big thing with the founding was the fact that I was going to focus more on the monthly recurring revenue and providing managed services to my clients. And some of my first, services were simply doing help desk support tickets. I had a managed backup product as well. And then I still did do, because it was just a better fit, this is back in the mid 2000s, where, that MRR and what we know today as managed services was kind of, I'll say leading edge, even bleeding edge. So I went into the intent of founding BlueNet with it being a company that was going to offer managed services from the get-go. So I grew BlueNet, over the years. I think by year 2, I'll call myself 1.5 people. I was doing about $1 million a year in business or revenue. And throughout the years, I met people along the way. And I decided, because I met one of my business partners at that point in time, we decided to kind of join together and form a larger BlueNet at that point in time. So we did I'll say traditional merger, wasn't an acquisition. We merged our two companies together. We both had an ownership stake in the company. And I would say probably one of my biggest mistakes was we decided to do more or less a 50-50 ownership. And we had a good, we worked with some great people, great, legal counsel to, craft a really good buy-sell agreement, which is something completely different topic, but certainly something I hope you all have if you own an MSP, especially with partners, is a very good buy-sell agreement. But we had a good buy-sell agreement. We actually worked out well together, and we grew the company, from that point in time into the, high $2 to low $3 million in revenue. Fast forward a couple more years, and we were on the prowl, I'll say, to look for another, acquisition target to grow our organization and scale our organization. We came across another company. And that other company, we ended up purchasing. We did an asset buy and ended up purchasing them. And we brought in 2 more partners. So there was 4 of us in the organization. One of my partners and I were equal. We had the same number of shares, and then we had 2 minority shareholders at that point in time. So as we continued to grow our organization, what we ended up running into was the fact that you had, I'll say, 4 cooks in the kitchen. There wasn't really a very good, clear, I'll say, leadership in our organization. I was the president and CEO. However, we had others, my other partners, they certainly had titles and they were certainly maybe leading up groups of people, and had people that reported to them. But, unfortunately, there wasn't, I'll say, a clear-cut decision maker. And that was probably another mistake that was made, in the sense that although I was by title, anytime I tried to make a decision on behalf of what was best or what I thought was best for BlueNet, would be challenged. And it got to the point where, about the only thing we could agree on at that point was actually kind of breaking apart. So I ended up, buying out 3 of my partners in late 2022. I'm at 2 years. This month is when everything got executed. And, with that, I had been in my head for many, many years seeing the challenges that we had come across at BlueNet, whether it be organizational challenges, whether it be problems with systems we were using, our stack, our fragmentation, and knew what I wanted to do once I could do it. So I think one of the first things I did is knowing that we needed a new PSA. So, this is where we kind of get into the system modernization of BlueNet. And go ahead.
I was just going to comment. That's an interesting point there that I don't hear discussed all too often. But how did you navigate those challenges of multiple stakeholders and therefore multiple different directions? I mean, ultimately, you bought them out, but what did that look like prior to doing so?
Great question. So it was difficult, and I'll say this. I'll tell you why. I think it was because we did not have clearly defined job descriptions, and I think we did not clearly define the difference between ownership in the company, which is one thing, and then having a job in the company. So everything from how we were paid and compensated, that should have reflected what our job was. Because, for an example, I was a guy who was putting in, anywhere between, 60 to 100 hours a week. I was, burning the candle at both ends. But yet one of the other owners was, comfortable putting in 30 hours a week. So that's an example of where you want to have those conversations, and that's fine. If an owner wants to, have an ownership stake in the company and only put in 30 hours because that's what he's willing to give, or that's what the time allows, that's okay as long as you agree with it. And I would think that you would want to have a job, description and list of duties and roles that individual is going to play in the company, and you need to associate that with the compensation structure that basically dictates that he's only going to be there 30 hours a week maybe, and he's only going to do the following roles. And unfortunately, we had a couple of us who were putting in a lot more time in the organization and others that were not, and yet our compensation levels amongst the group were similar. And I think that was a big pain point. And then playing off of that, just having a well-defined org chart. It was one of those things where there was a lot of headbutting over an org chart, even to the point where, I remember having a meeting where I drew an org chart and there was a lot of comments, and I challenged them saying, okay, if you have a problem with the org chart, go, design an org chart. Let's bring it back to the meeting and have a discussion about it. So those are things I think that you really need to flush out with partnerships and ownership. And defining what role they're going to play and really figuring out that time commitment that they're going to give to the organization.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. For sure. And perhaps, sorry, Brandy, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and the other thing too is having a clearly defined strategy where you all are rowing in the same boat, right? Yeah. Because that's part of what rubs a little bit. And identifying how you're going to get to what your end game is and working together towards it.
For sure. That's exactly what I was going to say. I was going to ask, did you have I'm guessing the answer is no, but did you have, or at least try to create, a unified mission statement for the organization?
Yeah, this is interesting. Believe it or not, prior to us, acquiring the final company we acquired, we actually were pretty close. We had a mission statement. We met yearly to go over kind of plans and kind of chart our course for the upcoming year. And we did that on a very regular basis. I think what ended up happening is when we acquired the last firm, I would say that there wasn't a good cultural fit. And that's something, another tidbit of information. If you're going to get into the acquisition game, it is finding really good cultural fits. The organization, how it's run, the people. Don't get me wrong, there's bad apples in every bunch, and you can deal with a couple or a handful. What you can't deal with, or it's very difficult to overcome, I think, is just two organizations that are absolute opposite ends culturally, and trying to find the correct cultural fit. So, all of a sudden, once we did acquire the last firm, that's where we really kind of started bashing heads from a cultural standpoint. And that's where a lot of the stuff we had in place from, having a mission statement, having stated goals, both revenue and just goals for the year, kind of fell off. And that was just really unfortunate.
Yeah, totally agree. And to take that a step further, it's not even necessarily that one culture is bad and one is good. They might just be totally different. But if they're not compatible, then you're most likely going to end up with fracturing of the business from within, which leads us nicely on to the next step in the journey, I suppose.
Yeah, no, and that's a good point. So, once I had control of BlueNat, the next step was really getting into the point of modernizing our systems. So we were, way back in the day, we were with another big PSA name, one of the two big ones at the time. We decided to go that route. We really struggled with it. It was actually kind of early in their days. They were, I'll say, fairly new at the time. They were certainly, I wouldn't say very mature, but they were, one of the big competitors, and we really struggled with it. This was at the times when, PSAs were, I would say, were very buggy, where they'd come out and fix one thing and break five others. And it was very frustrating. And, we wanted to make a change to get to something that was very, I'll say, simple, where, creating a ticket and grabbing a report and putting a client in was going to be easy. So we ended up with a PSA at the time called Commit CRM. It was a smaller, PSA. It was one that we hosted ourselves. We were in the infrastructure and private data center business, so that didn't really scare us off at all. We had a fairly robust data center offering. So we ended up choosing, Commit. Commit changed their name to Ranger PSA probably about 4 or 5 years ago, and we were with them up until 2023. The problems that we had, even internally in our organization, is we had to build a lot of things external to Ranger. So things that we had to do on our own. There wasn't a lot of, interconnectivity like Halo has, where there's APIs or there's webhooks or, there's these elegant connectors between one, partner and Halo. So a lot of that we started to build on our own. We had some of the guys that had development background and had and knew how to do some of this. So we started doing that. And one of my partners kind of took that on. And this was another friction point with the partnership, was the fact that, that partner spent a vast majority of their time building, I'll say, a PSA, kind of our homegrown. And it got to the point where, I asked the question, are we in the PSA business, in the MSP tools business, or are we in the MSP business? And, I wanted to be in the MSP business, and, that's what the name said on the door. So that was another kind of wake-up call, was the fact that, we had to make a difficult decision to move off of Ranger and move to Halo. And, it is, the PSA is kind of the heart and core of an MSP. It's a very difficult decision to make, not only in choosing, the PSA that best fits your business, but to actually do the work because it's such a disruptor in an MSP, because it drives most of what we do, day in and day out.
Yeah.
So I had looked at Halo many times in the past, been on several demos with Tim, I think even with yourself, Morgan, and kind of vetted out systems and then decided to move to Halo. And it was a big transformation for us. It's kind of the thing that really started to change, BlueNet in a very positive way, I should say.
Yeah, and there's sort of 2 points that I would comment on there. The first being about building your own PSA tool. And my comment there would be, don't try to reinvent the wheel. There are systems and frameworks in place. We're here to talk about financial frameworks effectively, the best way of doing things, best in class. And leave that to the vendors, right? And let yourself and your team focus on what you want to do best, which is running an effective MSP.
Right.
Yeah, and the other point there was about, it is a heavy lift, 100%. Whether you're moving to Halo or any other PSA system, don't take it for granted. There's a quick way of doing it and there's a proper way of doing it. And coming from the onboarding team, I have had far too many conversations with people that wanted to do it quickly. And I try with all my might to say, this isn't going to work for you 6 months down the road. You're going to have problems. And sometimes people would listen, sometimes they wouldn't. But ultimately, it's just true in general. Whether you're moving PSA or building a car, you can do it quick or you can do it properly.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And go ahead.
Well, I wanted to ask you how you did it, because I think we talked about this before, Adam, that you didn't copy everything over, right? Like you guys did the hard.
We did the hard way.
Work. The proper way.
And yes, and I'll even say this really ties into, our partnership with Next Level Now, and in the sense that, typically when you're looking at that point in time and doing your PSA, and again, that's the heart and soul of most MSPs, what aligns next to it is your financials. And, this was also the decision where if we're going to migrate from from Ranger to Halo, we also really needed to address the financial aspects of BlueNet. And, so we started with, trying to build out, a whole new general ledger. And we initially tackled that internally. I had some ideas in my head on how I wanted to do it. And we initially attacked that internally. And again, we started from scratch, to your point, Sonia. We didn't import any data. We left everything behind. The only thing we did was we exported data, I should say, scrubbed it though. It really cleaned it. And then we would basically import it via CSV. But the great thing that we learned through the process was, again, with the connectors inside of Halo, we could connect it to one of the other systems and tools we use, and we were able to pull that data over. So it wasn't like we needed to re-enter it. We just needed to make sure that the mapping was correct and verify that. And that was the big thing. But yes, we did start from scratch, essentially.
Yeah, and junk in, junk out, right?
Exactly.
And Adam, we have a question. Would you mind sharing what RMM you use and the security/AV software is what Terry asked.
Yeah, so we use Ninja. We actually had done our Ninja migration about 2 years prior to us moving from Ranger to Halo. One of the great things is the tight relationship that Ninja and Halo had. When I was looking at PSAs, I actually went to Ninja's page, looked at their partners, and saw, that Halo was one of them that was listed, and that is what encouraged me to ultimately reach out to Halo and get more information. We like Ninja a lot. It's been a great, RMM tool for us. So AV software, we use a product called Coro. Right now, we were using and still use one of the products that is bundled with Ninja as well, which is Bitdefender. So.
Good.
And then, from the accounting side, we had mentioned the books and aligning our books as well. So basically, once we started going through and cut over to Halo, the next step we were really struggling with was the financials. We had gone through and kind of, I'll say, was able to get through getting things kind of going. I had an internal person that was helping with our financials. I would call them more of a bookkeeper, maybe a finance head inside of BlueNet, but we really struggled to get things aligned. And at that time, I was being highly encouraged to join a peer group by one of my peers that we had done business with. And I finally relented and said, I will join the peer group. I had told them that it would be on a certain date and time because we just had a lot of stuff going on inside of BlueNet. Not only did we move, to Halo, but we redid, QuickBooks, again, started from scratch, and there were many other systems internally. We revamped probably about a dozen systems in a span of 6 to 9 months. So it was a very heavy lift for our organization. There's a lot we learned. That could be a whole nother webinar on that. But, I will say one quick thing is make sure you know how to approve charges and get billing out, because that affects cash flow. And it's probably one of the biggest disruptors in switching systems is making sure you maintain your cash flow. That really harmed us when we were going through the migration process. You tend to take, or can easily take, your eye off the ball of running your business because you are switching systems. But we ended up joining a peer group, and the one thing that the peer group had as a membership requirement was that we all report using the same financial standards and methods. And one of my peers, I had come in and it was a question in my first peer group meeting. We talked about financials and that alignment amongst the peers. And again, we kind of, to make that first peer group meeting, I had to report, and we kind of just, I'll say, struggle bust our way through getting the reports done to report to the peer group. And one of my peers, we had talked about it, and he said, hey, I use Next Level Now. I immediately got information, and I think, Brandy, you were sitting in my conference room 30 days, 15 days, something like that later. It was very quick. That is ultimately when we started engaging Next Level Now. And that was another big, momentous change inside of BlueNet. BlueNet was working with Next Level Now and really starting to get our financial house in order finally for a first time in many years.
Yeah, it was a great meeting too, because it just happened to work out where he called and I said, I can be there tomorrow. And it was like, okay. Yeah. And getting the reporting, that's the key, right? For any business to have a good story to tell, you have to know what the story is. And having access to Halo, talking to QuickBooks with the right chart of accounts and the right coding to be able to look at where you stand against your peers, but also understand the story your business is trying to tell you and how you need to change.
Yeah, that's another point. Don't reinvent the wheel. From the metrics standpoint, there's a lot of very well-defined metrics, in our world, in the MSP world. And I will say one of the old things that we tried to do, and especially with my old partnership group, was the fact that we tried to define our own metrics. And it was difficult because, again, these things are defined. There's lots of MSPs and there's several methods now. And there's a lot of similarity between these methods, but there's no need to reinvent the wheel and define your own metrics. Especially when you get to the point of, thinking about the long term, both of scaling your organization, how to measure growth, how to baseline, reporting, and really, maybe the end goal for a lot of us in the MSP space is sale of the company, whether it's sale to the employees as an ESOP or sale to another MSP or, to some other larger M&A firm. And again, if you talk to any of them, and I've talked to many of them over the years, they all use those same metrics, or they're very close. So they can come in and easily look at your financials and tell where you land on the spectrum and where you should be. So that's another bit of advice that I would give is don't reinvent the wheel with financials.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
Next Level Now is fantastic in helping us.
Thanks. I would say the one thing too is make sure you're reporting your financials correctly. That's one of the single greatest problems that we see, where accrual accounting, if you are trying to sell your business or get money from a bank and you want to have the maximum credibility, you want to be on an accrual basis, not a cash basis, and really understanding what that means and having your EBITDA and your cost of goods appropriately lined up. And I think that's one of the small challenges that we worked with you guys, Adam, is really getting that accrual set of books and having the right posting to the right general ledger accounts to be able to analyze the business, because it's the fastest way to discredit your financial statements, and you want them to be as honest and real as they can be to the people that look at them all day long.
Absolutely. And, sort of going back to the peer groups and more generally, reporting these values either in a vacuum or against a group of peers, when you're doing it on your own, the numbers might look good from one angle, but actually when you're reporting what you want to report on, and that one number looks really good, I think things are great. Revenue's really high, but then you go into these peer groups, you realize that all of these reports are incorrect, and you're not standardizing that information, and it actually turns out that you're not doing nearly as well as you thought you were. And Adam, we've spoken in the past, and it even went as far with yourself, I believe, where revenue dropped slightly, but profitability increased quite significantly. So again, it's that point there about turning the right dials and looking at the correct numbers and making sure that the numbers that you're looking at are the same numbers that your peers and your community are looking at, and pairing yourself up against that, because otherwise you'll never really know where you stand.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I would say the peer group's been invaluable for BlueNet. What it's done, first and foremost, what we're talking about here is just the benchmark. You're benchmarking against your peers. There's a little friendly competition. I'd say, beyond the friendly competition, though, the peer group is really there to help you. If you're in a good peer group where you're a really good fit, and not only, they're going to help you, they're going to look at everything, and they're going to give you, constructive criticism. And they're not there to, throw me under the bus or anything. They're really there to say, hey, listen, you're doing these things and wrong. Why are you doing it this way? And they're going to start questioning things. But at the same time, they're also there to lend the hand. They're going to there to, help you find a resource like my peer did in finding Next Level Now, or they're going to be, hey, I'll give you this information. And you can use this contract, just, dial it into to your needs or customize it to what you need it to look like. And then, of course, I'd say the last thing that a lot of people, in a successful peer group and being a successful peer member, is make sure you contribute to the peer group. We have, there's a total of 11 peers in my group, including BlueNet. And, it's one of those things where I'm also contributing to the peer group. I've gotten a lot of my peers to switch, or in the process to switch to Halo. None of them were thinking about it when I joined. So I'm going on a year in being in the peer group, and I think 5 of them are in process of switching to Halo.
Wow.
So, there's the influence that I had in coming to the group, but I will say they've influenced me and helped my business tremendously, and filled in a lot of the gaps that I was struggling with. So.
For sure.
And what were some of the things holding you back from joining a peer group in the past? Because you've been doing this for so long, Adam.
Yeah, great question. One of the things is time commitment. If you're in a
Mhm.
good peer group, they're going to hold you, accountable. Morgan, you said one of the points of the peer group is accountability. So, actually being present at the peer group meeting is a big deal. So we meet once a quarter in person. It's various locations throughout, the U.S., North America. Our last one was in Vancouver, Canada. So we end up having to meet in person, and we do approximately 1.5 to 2 days of sessions. And the first one we do QBRs. We have to present the QBR. They get published a week before we meet because we're not there to go through a whole hour-long presentation of our QBR. We're there to give 15 to 20 minutes of highlights, and answer questions that may have been asked from my peers, as well as I'm looking for help on something. So it's me asking my peer group, on a particular subject or a question, or asking, in many cases, hey, how are you guys handling this situation? So I would say that one of the big things that held me back in the past was the time commitment. Um, and I've been able to join because I've now got a great team that's been able to fill in a lot of the gaps that I had to just do on my own. And so that allowed me to finally join a peer group.
Awesome. What's a QBR report? Quarterly business review?
Quarterly business review. Yeah. So QBR, basically we do quarterly business reviews, financials being probably a third of the presentation is all about financials, and then benchmarking ourselves against each other. So,
Yeah,
yep.
even lead gen, like sales numbers and things, are those included?
Correct. There's a standard template we all use, even to the presentation. We have to report certain metrics to the group every quarter. Everything from, what does your org chart look like to, what are your compensation levels look like? Because we're measuring everything. If I've got an employee that has a title and it's showing up on my org chart and I'm assigning a compensation level and it might be outside, I'll say, the norm, my peers are going to point it out. They're going to ask questions as to why. And I might have a good justification, but it also might be me not knowing. And they're going to give some feedback as to, what I should be paying or what I should be doing in that case.
Awesome. And how did you find that? I mean, it sounds like a friend, right? A friend referred you. Like,
Yeah,
what are some other tips for people to find the right peer group?
So good question. This one was a business that we work with. We have a SharePoint Power BI division, so we do a lot of SharePoint Power BI, Power Apps teams consulting, and we do that for other MSPs. And this happened to be an MSP that we've been working with for a number of years. And the owner had called me and said, "Hey, we're looking for new peers in our peer group." So he invited me. It took him 1.5 years, I think, before I finally committed, and was able to join. So, but other ways to find them. Another just follow up. We also are in Robin Robbins. Robin Robbins has peer groups. I'm an ASCII member. ASCII has peer groups as well. Ingram Micro, Tech Data, Cynics, they have a community of peer groups. And, we're a member of a couple of them. I'd say this is probably the most important one I belong to, but we are a member of a couple different peer groups. And again, we get different things from all of them.
Great. Yeah,
and then I would say the results of all of this, kind of moving on with, in the slide, it says leaner staff, higher EBITDA, position to scale. I would also say, we are doing that, but probably one of the big things that has happened with us getting to a standardization on a stack, a new PSA, is the culture. The culture has gotten a lot better. People used to dread doing things in our old systems because it broke, it didn't work well. It's really kind of the same problem that we can solve as an MSP for our clients. Is some of the technology challenges kind of takes that culture level down a couple notches. People dread that kind of stuff, and here we are in this world fixing a lot of that stuff, morale issues for our clients, and here we had them internally. So once we finally moved to these new systems, morale boosted, culture got tighter knit. We had new people and we cleaned out a lot of the old habits. And finally, there was a single vision in place. And we could point the ship saying, hey, we're going to go this way. And I was able to get everyone behind me to agree and move forward. And that's probably the biggest benefit in all of this is the morale and the culture change inside of BlueNet. Of course, the higher profit's a big deal. Getting the better reports is a huge thing. We're finally able to, I'll say, make decisions based upon actual data. It's not just a gut check anymore. This is how I feel. It's here's the baseline. Here's where we're trending. This is what the financials look like, and we finally can chart a course because all of these things came together. So.
Amazing.
I think
Amazing.
modeling helps too, Adam, because now you have a really good financial model based on gathering all this information. So you have your strategic vision, but you also have the financial model that lets you know what is that going to look like on pen and paper? How much cash will you have at the end, and what does your EBITDA look like, and when do you need to hire? So you've been able to put all of that together.
Absolutely. That's another really important thing is modeling. Having this data and being able to see where the trends are going and kind of saying this is what the next 6 months holds, and modeling that out. That's been huge for us. Whether it's trying to avoid a disaster, saying, hey, look, the market's really kind of firming up here. Things are getting tight. Do I need to make a decision of maybe cutting someone loose? Or do I need to make a decision about changing a partnership? And looking for some ways to get some, cost analysis or benefit of changing something. And the opposite is, hey, we're trending higher. This is the next point. I know when I need to hire the next employee, next tech, next marketing person, again, based upon the metrics that we're able to produce now and model.
Yep.
It's huge.
I like to say you're driving your car forward, not in reverse now.
Very true.
Very true. You've got the directions up. You've got your Waze telling you where to go instead of having your atlas out. We
Exactly.
have a good question from Donovan on how do you structure the onboarding process for your new employees and how do they get up? When do you see productivity out of them?
Good question. Ironically, we're going through and redesigning our employee onboarding process right now as we speak. We've got a great partner, Next Level Now, and we've actually now are engaging with a new HR firm, and they're helping us. We're going through an HR audit right now, and part of that HR audit is how do you onboard employees, how do you offboard employees, and going through. We had a basic checklist that we were using internally. But again, like many of the systems where we're modernizing, again, our PSA, for example, we have to modernize a lot of the things that we're doing internally, these internal processes. And onboarding employees is something we're right in the middle of. So I can't fully comment on that other than saying that, it's something we're addressing at this point in time. And I'd say find a good Next Level Now is actually helping with some of that, but find a good HR partner because, a lot of us from the MSP standpoint, we don't need full-time HR people on staff. We're too small. So it's really engaging a good HR partner.
Yep. And I think that's right. Yeah. Your CFO at Next Level is able to link you up with someone that, from his sphere. And so that's another thing too, right, just sharing that great information and giving referrals on talent, people that we trust and know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, I'd love to see some of those actual, and well, I'm going to unshare my screen and Morgan's going to show us some really neat KPI dashboarding. Not a full product tour of Halo, guys, but just understanding what are some of those key metrics that Adam has been referring to. And then also Terry had another question, Adam. Well, here, I'll stop presenting, Morgan. On a few key ratios that you track. So wow, Terry, thanks for lining that up. But yeah, Adam, if you wouldn't mind speaking to a couple of those, and Morgan will show us some of those that we're referring to.
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the big things that we're doing inside of Halo with reporting is accountable time for technicians. So they have to get their hours in and account for their time. That has been a struggle for us in the past. Some of our techs were really good at it. Some were not so good. And again, back to the culture point, accountable time now becomes part of the culture because now my pool of technicians are able to hold each other accountable. There's a weekly report that goes out from my service, director. And if one of them is kind of falling down on that accountable time, the other guys are going to kind of razz them a little bit or kind of hold that person accountable. So accountable time is a big deal. We break accountable time into different buckets, and we have different teams. So if you're on a managed service team, that's a little bit of a different metric than someone that's on our project or professional services team. Because on the professional services and project team, it's all about, what percentage of their time is billable. And obviously, on the low end of the threshold, you want to kind of be at that 60 to 75%, rate. That's our target. On the managed services side, we're in the same boat. We're really looking to account for 60 to 70% of that time. But we have them record everything from, are you joining an internal meeting? Are you, servicing a ticket? And these are things that Halo has made, very easy to do moving forward. We have profitability now by contract. We're getting to profitability by customer. So it's taking an aggregate of everything they do with us, throughout the year. If we do a project, it's, is the project profitable? Are we making money on it? Again, Halo's been instrumental in helping us, figure that stuff out as well. Billing plan combinations is another report that we run, looking at, are our guys choosing the right rates, in conjunction with the type of work they're doing. You wouldn't believe how many times that's also been problematic in the past. And again, Halo, using Halo has been able to help a lot of those. So yeah, Morgan, go ahead.
Nice.
I mean,
Yeah, no, thanks, Adam. I mean, you said it all for me, basically. I want to briefly touch on the reporting piece that Adam just mentioned there. So part of Halo's architecture is Halo sits on top of a SQL database, and the reporting engine within Halo is effectively a read-only window directly into that database, which means that if it's in the system, it can be reported on. So nothing is locked away. There's an ongoing effort here at HaloPSA to help standardize a lot of those reports and dashboards, one of which has been added into the trials here as our profitability dashboard, looking at a couple of those key metrics that you mentioned there. So effective hourly rate, so the hourly, the effective hourly rate is effectively an industry standard looking at the billable time or the time that's been consumed by an agreement against the actual amount of cost and time associated to the agent that's performed that work. Other things down here like cost per user, cost per endpoint, all wrapping it up into our gross agreement profitability that we've got a breakdown month by month here. And again, this is very much a sort of V1 of this report. The idea is, and I know that we're working with multiple leaders in the space, Next Level now being one of them, to help provide a really robust set of dashboards that you can use to help standardize that and make things more straightforward moving forwards, and to help our MSP community effectively collaborate themselves. As we said earlier, the accountability piece and the importance of a peer group is around standardization and making sure, well, what's your number compared to mine? Now that can get messy when the reports are different. So we want to be able to provide a series of dashboards that are, vetted and verified by the community, that our MSP community can use to track those key metrics.
And is this a live dashboard
This is
that,
the live
say,
dashboard.
Justin, a current user, can use?
Yes, Justin can use this, absolutely.
Oh.
This is on our online repository, I believe. If not,
And what
I'll
was it
pop.
called? The profitability? What was
Yes,
the dashboard name called?
it's just profitability. Yeah.
Profitability.
And then
Cool.
we've got our project management dashboard. Again, we're looking at our project profitability here, which is just outrageously bad. This one's due to trial configuration, but the idea here is being that you'll quote some hours, you've got some budgeted hours down here, and what is the cost of labor compared to what the originally quoted figure was, or if the hours are billable, what is the cost of labor plus that billable time minus your fully burdened rate. And I just want to briefly touch on two key points, two quick wins in HaloPSA that will help you get a better understanding of where you stand in terms of your finances. And the first point I'll mention is that fully burdened rate. The individuals that are working on tickets, the team in your MSP in HaloPSA are referred to as agents. And if we hop into our list of agents, which we can get to from the cog down here, we go to configuration, teams and agents, we'll see that for a given agent, we have down here our cost per hour. Now, really, and I think I'm going to rename this, this is not just your cost per hour. This should be your fully burdened hourly rate. So, everything like healthcare, insurance, if they've got a loan car, everything. How much does it cost to have this employee working for you per hour? So you want to make sure that you're leveraging that. It's very hard to calculate labor profitability if you're not using this. And then the other point that I want to briefly mention is just within all of our products in Halo, we have the ability to attribute those to our income and expense accounts. And usually if you're integrated with Sage, Xero, QuickBooks Online, this will all be pre-populated for you. But if not, you definitely want to make sure that you're leveraging your income and expense accounts such that when you do report on that profitability at the end of the quarter, end of the year, you have that cost and that price in the respective buckets for them.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And that's exactly like what we focus on when we go into
nice.
a client like with Adam, is understanding, are things in the right buckets? Can we get from cash to accrual basis? And and that's kind of like, I always liken it to like the Marie Kondo, like we're cleaning house and making sure it's cracks before we start renovating the whole house.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we're running out of time here, but Sonia, perhaps if you just want to spend a bit more time talking about what those key metrics do look like and what should MSPs be considering and looking at their finances.
Yeah, I mean, I'll hand it over to Brandy because you're the you're the SME there. But yeah, what are some of those, really, really important KPIs for our customers?
Yeah, at the top level, you want to know what's your gross profit, your EBITDA, and your revenue. And we do look at trends to that to see if they trend similarly together or do they vary widely. That lets us know if things are really not coded properly. We can see that really quickly. Looking at business segment profitability as well. We look at if you are doing managed services as well as projects, as well as hardware sales. Looking at the profitability by business segment really matters, and that's the gross profit. Looking at what is your revenue per employee or your cost per employee, making sure you're staffed appropriately, and if there are changes that may need to be made there. And then looking at your liquidity and your cash flow trends, because to Adam's point, keeping your eye off of cash and only focusing on the P&L doesn't help. If you, it helps you change and course correct how you're running your business, but you need to make sure that you have cash in order to meet your business needs and requirements. Because if you do have loans or bank covenants or things of that nature, you want to stay out of any trouble there. So that's pretty much where we start. We will then dig into utilization to try and determine, do you have the right staffing mix? Do you have the right number of people? Do you have too many, too little? And we start at the highest level and dig down from there, because when you look at your financials and look just at your gross profit and look at it month over month, things will present and tell us where we need to focus and drill down into various details to help improve the overall cash flow and business profitability.
Awesome. Great. And yeah, Patrick had a great question. What is Next Level's target client size? So yeah, how big do you need to be to have a fractional CFO and financial services team?
And we work with clients from startup to up to $100 million. The biggest key for us is we want to make sure that we're working with people that, one, we can impact change for them and help them transform their business. As Adam can tell you, he and I had a very lengthy conversation one day about some tough decisions that needed to be made in his organization. We're going to really help advise you through those tough decisions. But if you do want to be more profitable, grow, be more scalable, it will sometimes mean that you have to make tough decisions. So we do assess that in our clients to make sure that we can have maximum output or goal attainment for the clients based on where the clients are. So there is no client that is too small. Fractionally, for an IT company, $50 million or less tends to be our sweet spot. You won't need, then you're going to want to look into a full-time resource. 30 million is we've worked with. So right in there, but really be ready to be transformed and change and accept Next Level as a partner in your organization. So it's important for us. We bring a whole team to the table. We bring a CFO and then we bring an accounting team and we throw whatever resources that are needed at meeting your goals and objectives and your outcomes versus focusing on the hours that it's going to take. So how I am not Adam's CFO. One of our CFOs in our firm is his CFO, but I've worked with him just because if John, his CFO, has a problem that he may not be best suited to help solve, he'll bring in the resource from our firm to help solve that problem. So I've worked with Adam on one, assessing his organization and working towards onboarding, but as well as helping him solve some difficult staffing and organizational issues. So we really work as a team approach, not a one-to-one. So being open to that, that's what matters.
Nice. And another good follow-up question, does partnering with Next Level negate the need for a separate bookkeeper, accountant, CPA?
Yeah, so we do not do taxes. We will liaison with your CPA firm for that. And yes, it can negate the need to have a bookkeeper, or you can choose to keep your bookkeeper and we'll manage them for you and help train and mentor and get them to the level in your organization that they need to get to.
Yeah, it's nice to have.
So there's no one. We're not one size fits all, guys. We're more of a boutique firm that really tries to be with our clients where they are and help drive the path to where they want to be using the tools and methodologies that we've learned over the years and leveraging our experience.
Yep. And very technology focused too. I'll say that. I came from a VAR before being at Next Level and very technology forward. So we know Morgan because a lot of our clients use Halo and other PSA systems that we are in all day. Our accounting teams are in there and they understand them inside and out. And if you guys are doing something backwards or not as efficient as you could be, or maybe you could add this one productivity app to speed things up, we'll be the first ones to tell you. So it's really enjoyable for us too to work with technology firms like an MSP that really appreciates what technology can do and how it can propel processes forward, not just speed up bad processes. So I always kind of say it's like a really nice meeting of the minds, where you guys are embracing it and we do as well. But I think too, just to get like really down to Patrick's question, like I'd say like in that sub 10 million of an MSP is usually where, and things get exciting after that, like 2-3 million, like where Adam is, you're getting up in that more 5-6-7 million dollar space, and you're like, holy moly, I've got this nice business. Can I keep it going? What's next for me? Do I get acquired? Just like Adam was saying, do I partner? Do I go to one of the PE firms? Or you don't have to, but that's kind of like that, you want that adult in the room that's been there. And that's kind of where we like to come in and help to, sustain you, grow that profitability and get you to where you want to go. But you don't have to be 4 or 5, $7 million. It can be less than that.
Yeah.
Get there. Adam, do you have anything to say around these KPIs? And I'm just going to put up kind of, one more slide, but anything to go along with this?
Yeah, I would say, again, our partnership with Next Level will help us define a lot of them as well. And back to the point of not, necessarily reinventing the wheel. A lot of these KPIs, I would say, are industry standard or things that, are out there, and between Next Level Now and our peer group, and they're using some of the method KPIs that they have as well, has really again helped BlueNet transform quite a bit. So, but yeah, no, it's been working with Next Level. I'll give a lot of kudos. Working with them has been, it's been difficult at times, but necessarily difficult in the sense that you have an outside person coming in, and it's one of two things. They either can see something you can't because you're too close to the problem, or it's really saying, hey, I see this problem, but I really need someone else to verify that this problem exists. And in both those cases, Next Level Now has been instrumental in transforming BlueNet. So.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you so much for your time and
you.
hearing your story. It really is. It's beautiful to see how far you've come.
Thank you.
For sure.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.